Hi everyone, this is Eric from Indicator Warehouse, and in this video I'm going to go over some of the high probability setups that we have with our diversified trading systems. I'm going to be looking at all three instruments. I'm going to be looking at the Hawk, the Falcon, and the Eagle. People are always asking, how do you know which signal to take? There's so many signals. How do you know which one is the right signal? Well, that's what we're going to be addressing in this video. Actually, once you become familiar with DTS, you're going to realize there really aren't that many signals generated. But sometimes it can look a little bit confusing when you are new to the DTS system. What we have right here, this is the Hawk Micro-Scalper. And the way the signal develops is it develops in four stages. What I mean to say is we are looking for four things to be in sync before we generate a buy or a sell signal. And those four things with the Hawk happen to be the bar color, the micro trend line color, the macro trend line color, and lastly, the color of the filter. When all four of these are in sync, then we will have a higher probability signal develop. Now, the signal itself develops in two stages. First, we get a warning dot. Now, this warning dot occurs when some of the parameters for our trade signal are starting to develop. When all of the parameters have been met, then we get a triangle and a hash mark, and that hash mark is a suggested entry. You don't actually have to enter on the hash mark, and I'll talk about that in just a little bit. But once we get the triangle and the hash mark, then we actually have a full signal. So what makes one signal better than the other? Well, with the Hawk, there's a couple of things that we can look for. First off, one thing that I always give most attention to is whether or not we have a trend for the day. Now, how can you tell if the market is trending, and how can you tell when the market is choppy? People are always asking, because choppy markets are dangerous markets. Well, you can see here on the Hawk Micro-Scalper that this is a fairly choppy looking market. How do I know it's choppy? Well, quite simply, my bar colors keep changing. They go from red to yellow to green, back to yellow to red, back to yellow to green. So there's no consistency in the bar color. And my micro and macro trend lines keep changing color as well. You can see my micro trend line goes from green to red, back to green, down to red. Now it's green again. And our macro as well is changing from red to gray to green to gray to red to green. So it's all over the board. Lastly, our filter is also very choppy. You can see it's changing quite a bit here. It's neither bullish nor bearish. The market keeps flip-flopping. So right there, that tells me for the last few hours here, the market has been very choppy. Now, when the market is choppy, you need to exercise a little bit of caution or recognize the fact that if you get a signal, there's a possibility that the signal may not have as much follow through as when the market is trending. If I back this up a little bit, this is actually today's session. If I back this up a little bit, you can see that we started the day with a much nicer trend. Now, how do I know the market is trending? Well, the beauty of these mean Renko bars, which I have on this particular chart, is that they condense price action. So it shows you price action without any relation to time. You can see the time is plotted here across the bottom, but it has no specific increments. So it's not plotted in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. It's plotted according to the price action. So that gives me a much better indication of what the true price activity is. Now, my definition for a trend is actually very simple. Because the mean Renko bars show me the price action this way, if I have the bars starting in the top left corner and going down to the bottom right corner, that is a market that is in a downtrend. So my definition of a trend is actually very simple. Because the mean Renko bars consolidate the price action for me, I can see what price is actually doing, or I can better see what price is actually doing. And for me, a trend is quite simply, if the market starts in the top left corner and goes to the bottom right corner, well, that's a downtrend. And if it starts in the bottom left corner and goes to the top right corner, well, then that would be an uptrend. So because this particular chart is more in a downtrend, I would have more of a selling bias. So that's the first thing. So I will be more receptive to sell signals than I will be to buy signals. So what does a good sell signal look like on the hawk? Well, my favorite sell signal on the hawk happens to be the one that we call the first micro-macro crossover. And it is exactly what the name suggests. The micro line crosses over the macro line. Everything comes into sync, meaning that everything in this case is all red, and we generate a sell signal, or in the case of an advancing market, a buy signal. This is a very high probability signal. This signal has a very high degree of accuracy. You're almost guaranteed to hit your scalping profit target. As you can see, it also precludes a lot of nice moves, so it's also a pretty good trade that you may want to trail a running contract on because there could be a lot more follow through on it, especially when the market has some trend to it. Let's advance it here to where we're looking at currently, and you can see once again we're coming out of this choppiness. We're generating a micro macro crossover, and the signal comes right here. So here's our first micro macro cross. Here's our signal. We're in. We take a little bit of heat, but it looks like the market is going to push higher and at least reach our first profit objective. So that's a very high probability signal that we get developing in the hawk. So when I see those kinds of signals, then I become a lot more receptive to them. Let me show you one that doesn't look quite as promising, and when you're first starting or looking at this, it's going to look the same to you, and that's this signal right here, where we have the market crossing over, and it generates our first micro-macro cross to the upside. Now, is this a valid signal? Yes, it is a valid signal, but I'm not as enthralled with the signal for two reasons. And those reasons are, first, we are in a downtrend, right? The market is more in a downtrend at this stage of the game than it is in an uptrend. I will know it's in an uptrend when we're actually going to take out some of this resistance up here and get above it. All right, so I'm going to give more preference to a selling signal than I will to a buying signal, even though this is technically a first micro-macro cross signal. But the other tip-off that I know it's not as high a probability signal is that we have not tested the extreme. This is a beauty of these mean Renko bars from Indicator Warehouse. I know that price has to test the extreme down here before there's any chance of a proper reversal. It's just the nature of the markets. It happens time and again. So at this stage of the game, I'm actually looking for a proper retest of the extreme. I need to see this market fail before I can get serious about buying. So let's see what happens. It comes lower. Aha, look, now we're getting that test of the extreme. We're actually starting to dip a little bit lower, and we're generating another hawk signal, which I don't have time to discuss in this particular video, but this one is called a red bar buy. So it's actually suggesting that there's some selling bias going on here, a little bit of buying pressure as well. And so here we go. Here's the test of the extreme that we were looking for. Notice we generated a first micro-macro cross signal right here, but also notice that it never triggered. Right? So that's the beauty of this DTS system. It actually looks for enough momentum to actually get you into the trade before you actually take that signal. And the hash mark is only a suggested entry as well. If I were taking this signal, I would probably place my entry a couple ticks away and go below the extreme of this bar. But that's, again, something else for another video. I just want to show you how what happens after we get this test of the extreme, this failure. Now all of a sudden we're going to generate our first micro-macro cross. And now I can be a little bit more aggressive on the buy. Why? Because I've seen the bears fail. I've seen them fail, try to push the market lower, and now they're going to try to go higher. All right, so that's just a brief overview of the difference between some of the higher probability signals and lower probability signals that we're looking for when we're trading the hawk, and how we take certain market conditions into consideration when we're doing that. Let's take a look at the Falcon. All right, in this video, we're going to take a look at some of the good, bad, and ugly signals that we get in the Falcon swing trader. The Falcon swing trader, this is quite the tool. It is very good at picking up mid-range price swings and getting you into the market when the market is actually ready to move. Like the other DTS birds, the Falcon is designed to give you signals when everything is in sync. And there's three components here in the Falcon. We're looking at bar color, we're looking at trend line color, and we're looking at the color of the filter. And ideally, we want everything to be in sync before we take a trade. Now, a lot of people look at the Falcon and they say, how can you tell which is a good signal and which is a not so good signal? And well, it's not that difficult. And that's what we're going to look at right now. Like the other DTS birds, the signals always develop in two stages. First, we get a warning dot, and that warning dot occurs when part of the trade parameters are being met. Enough of them are met at this point that the signal actually fires. The system sends you an alert and says, hey, pay attention, there could be a swing trade building here really quick. When the rest of the trade parameters are met, then we get a triangle, which is followed by a hash mark, and that hash mark is only a suggested entry. You can take it at that entry point, or you can adjust it to suit your own preferences, and I'll talk about that in just a minute. So what does a good signal in the Falcon look like? Well, let me show you my favorite Falcon signal, and it's actually very easy to recognize. What happens is this signal occurs when the trend line changes color. So when the trend line changes color from green to red, the market has all of a sudden changed its directional bias. And what we're looking for now is we're looking for a signal or a pattern that I refer to as a down, up, down, or in the case of a downtrend turning to an uptrend, we're going to be looking for an up, down, up. So in this case, we're looking for a down, up, down. And what that is, it's showing us the market battling it out between the buyers and the sellers, and then it's going to show us which side actually takes control. So when this trend line changes color, we already have a hint that the sellers are going to take control of the market, but here is what the down, up, down looks like. We have a down signal fire. That's followed by an up signal. Now that up signal shows us that the buyers are desperately trying to get this market back. That is followed by another down signal, and that down signal comes when everything is in sync. So you'll see this down signal comes after the transition, everything is in sync, and now the market falls off. Let's go back here a little bit further. This is an excellent up, down, up, where you can see we get the up signal, there's the transition, the down signal, this is the sellers trying to fight the market back, and then finally we get the up signal, and look at that follow through. That is a beautiful looking trade right there. And it's going to happen time and again. Let's roll it back here. You can see we have another one. We have an up, down, followed by an up right at the transition point. Now, if you didn't catch that one, this one came on very quick. And a little hint that you would have had to look for this is actually given by the mean Renko bars. That's the charting style that we use with the DTS. And what you would see is you would see that we have a low, and then now all of a sudden we have a higher low. So that's suggesting that we're going to take out this high, which is exactly where the Falcon fired the hash mark, right at this high. Now, let's say you didn't see that. Let's say you got in that a little bit late. Let's say you just saw the transition here. Well, not to worry. We have another up. We have a down. And notice this down is only a single bar with a warning dot. The sellers couldn't even advance it far enough to generate another bar. But it doesn't matter. We have the up, we have the down, followed by another up signal, and that's when the market finally starts to go. So that is a very high probability signal with the Falcon. When we get those transitions, when that trend line changes color, everything falls into sync. We get that up, down, up pattern, or in the case of a downtrend, we get the down, up, down, and that's usually a pretty safe signal to take. That's almost as good as money in the bank. Here's another example. Here we get the up, we get the down, here's the transition, another up, and the down, and then the market finally starts to go. Another nice setup in the Falcon is the regular pullback phase that we get. And what we're looking for is we're looking for the signal actually to come in and get right in here, get right messed up with this trend line. Now, ideally, the trend line will not change color. If the trend line stays the same color and we get this reset happening, and then we get a sell signal, that too is a very strong signal to get. So we're always watching the trend line when we're trading the Falcon because we want to be on the same side of the trade as the trend line. If the trend line is red, we're looking to sell. If the trend line is green, we are looking to buy. So very strong signals in the Falcon. Let me see what an ugly Falcon trade would look like. Oh dear, I got to scroll back here quite a ways to find one. We've had nothing but nice signals. All right, come on, there's got to be one here somewhere. Where's one that's going to be a little harder to decipher? Well, these are all good looking signals. You see how we're coming into the trend line here? Trend line never changes color. Here's the struggle, the battle going on, and look at that. We get the down signal, boom, the market falls off. Here's a little transition where the trend line actually changed color, but we have the down. Notice they're just warning dots. We have the up, just warning dots, followed by the down with that transition, and again, the market falls off rather nicely. Okay, somewhere around here there has to be a bad Falcon signal. Well, not a bad signal, but maybe one that's harder to take. Oh, and I can't find you one. Well, there you have it. It's too good of a tool. What can I say? Let's take a look at the Eagle next. Okay, the last of our DTS tools is the Eagle Trend Trader, and as the name suggests, the Trend Trader is designed to pick up on emerging market trends. Now, trends don't happen as often in the market perhaps as we would like. It's a fact of life that trends only occur about anywhere from a third to half of the time. So as a trend trader, if you're using the Eagle tool, you need to be aware that about half of the time the market is going to be in a bit of a sideways state or in a ranging market. The beauty of the Eagle Trend Trader is that it usually identifies that pretty easily. You can see that right here we have a market that is fairly choppy. Prices are moving sideways, and that's kind of reflected in how the filter represents the market as well as what's happening here in the price chart. Let me point out the Eagle Trend Trader. There's a couple of minor differences between the Eagle Trend Trader and the Hawk and the Falcon. The Eagle Trend Trader has this gray trading band in it, and this trading band shows us the market bias. So when the soft edge is above the hard edge, we have a market that is bullish, and here where we have the soft edge below the hard edge, we have a market that's going to be a little bit more bearish. And I pay particular attention to the filter with the Eagle Trend Trader. And the reason is the filter shows me which side of the market has control over the marketplace. So I'm looking to see colors getting larger or smaller. Here you can see here's an example. The bears had control of the market. Oop, all of a sudden the bulls come in for a few bars. The bears come back. The range is getting a little bit narrower than what it was. Now all of a sudden we get a green band. It's getting a little bit wider than what it was. And finally we get this very narrow red band, and then all of a sudden we start to get some more green building. So when I see that sort of thing happen, it tells me that the bears are losing control, the sellers are losing control, and the buyers are starting to gain control. So let's take a look actually how that plays out. Well, here we have an example. Like I said, see what happens to the filter here? We're just trading bars. Like nobody is getting bigger, nobody is getting smaller. That tells me that this market is very neutral at the moment. Oh, now all of a sudden we're starting to get the market showing us a bullish bias, right? We had these red segments here, not really gaining any momentum, and now we have these green segments, and all of a sudden the green segments are starting to get momentum. Now we have a bullish band, right? The soft edge is above the hard edge, and I'm going to be on the alert now for a buy signal. All right, so here we get a buy signal, and you'll notice too that with the mean Renko bars, it's very easy to identify that this market has been ranging, that it has been going sideways, and the mean Renko bars show you price action. So what I'm looking for now is I'm looking for the market to actually break out of this trading range and get through the top end of this trading channel. Now, why do I think that it might be going higher? Well, I have this little bit of a swing low here, which failed to get as low as this previous swing low. So it's showing me there is a little bit more action to the upside. And like I mentioned, look at these red bands. There's nothing going on with these red bands. The green bands are getting bigger. So this looks like it's going to be a good buy signal for the Eagle. So let's go on, see what happens. And yes, okay, there we go. A little bit of hesitation, but we got some very nice follow through. The other thing with the Eagle is I like to see these signals develop away from the band. I don't want to see the signals smothered in the band. Let's take a look at what would be not as strong a signal in the Eagle, and we have one right here. Notice how this signal generated. The band was kind of halfways into this bar. That would be the bare minimum signal. Fortunately, this signal never triggered, but like I said, we had other things going on. It wasn't in sync. We had a red filter down here. We're immersed in the band. not a very good looking signal. We want things to be in sync. We want to see some momentum. We want to see those signals develop away from the band, and then there's actually a chance that there's going to be a little bit of follow through. Hopefully at least enough follow through that we can reach our first profit objective. So with the Eagle, it's not that difficult. We pay a little bit more attention to what's going on with our band, our filter. We pay attention to which way our band is pointing, and we realize that there's going to be periods where the market is actually going to be going sideways. And when it is sideways, well, then we know we can be on the alert for a breakout. So we pay close attention to the filter, see who's gaining the upper hand in the marketplace, then we wait for our signal, and we're usually very well rewarded for waiting a little bit longer. Oh, look at that beautiful move. My goodness, that's just going on and on. So that's the Eagle Trend Trader. And again, very simple to use, very clear signals, and just a couple of little considerations there that you want to keep in the back of your mind when you're trying to distinguish one signal from the other, which is going to be the better one.